Hi everybody, I'm in my office today so that I can show you my huge supply of awesome base 10 blocks. Base 10 blocks are something that you will be able to use, I hope, in your school when you teach, usually starting about second grade. If you're teaching lower grades than second grade, you're going to still be using base 10 items, so looking at base 10 blocks is still a good idea. And certainly in third grade and fourth grade and fifth grade, base 10 blocks are used a lot. So let's start with the basic unit of base 10 blocks. I have a bag full. So the first unit we've got for base 10 blocks is the 1. So this is 1 unit. 1 unit is worth 1, right? So 1 unit equals 1. The next one up from 1 unit is if I took that one tiny unit and put 10 of them together. Here is the base 10 rod. And you can see it's notched, so you can see that it's got 10 little units in it. See, close up. There we go. So one rod in our base 10 system, one rod is worth 10 units. There we go. One rod, 10 units. All right. Now, if I take 10 of these rods and stack them together, what do you think that I will get? What kind of shape? Think about it for a minute. So 10 rods stacked together, I'm going to get one flat. So how many units do you think are in this flat? So think about it for a second. You've got 10 rows of 10 here, right? So 10, 10, 10, 10, or 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, think about it. And you get one flat is 10 rods, which is 100 units. Now, after the flats, what do we get if we take 10 flats and stack them all up together? So I'm not sure that I've got 10 of them here, just about. So imagine what kind of shape, if I really had 10 of them all stacked together, what kind of shape would you get? And sure enough, you get a cube, right? So see all the sides of my cube. How many units are in this cube? So think about one flat is 100, 100, 100, 100, or you can go 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, etc., etc. How many units do you have for one cube? So one cube, you've got 10 flats, or 1,000 units. And 1,000 units is also 10 to the third power, right? So now what about the flats? What power of 10 is a flat? A flat is 100. So 100 units is 10 by 10. 10 by 10. 10 by 10 flat is 10 to the second power, or 100 units. Think about how we say 10 to the second power. We say 10 squared. Makes sense because what we have is a square here. Think about how we say 10 to the third power. We have 10 cubed. We have a cube. So that's actually where the words squared and cubed come from for second and third power. And then finally, well, not quite finally, almost finally, this rod, this is 10 to what power? So we did third power, we did second power. This is 10 to the first power, right? So one rod, 10 units, 10 to the first power. And see if you can work your way backwards. This is just 1 unit. That's 10 to what power? So we went third power. There we go. Third power, second power, first power. So this is 10 to the first power, right? This is the rod. So this must be 10 to the 0 power. And what's kind of cool is from that pattern, you can see why anything to the 0 power is 1, because we're going down in the powers as we go down our base 10 blocks. All right, now let's suppose you want to show your students how to make some numbers out of the base 10 blocks. Let's say that you want to make 332. No, let's do 342, right? Let's have some different numbers going on. So think, you've got 300, that's 3 flats, 300, and then 42. 40 is 4 rods. So let's see if I can get them all in the picture. So you have 4 rods and 3 hundreds, and then of course you've got at the end your 2 little units. So I can't really show this all to you guys on the screen beautifully, but we can write it on paper really nicely. So your students will have this kind of paper that they can write the number on. So I'm going to just take a second and write down my number. Whoops, let's make sure you see the blank. So we're going to write down 342 on our piece of paper. So here's the number 342 as you might write it down on your piece of paper. But that's not even really what we want to do with these things. What we really want to do is help students learn how to add with base 10 blocks. So besides just making numbers, we want to talk about, what if I had to add to this 342? What if I had to add 271 to this? So think about how underneath this picture you would make 271. So here I have 271 underneath on the bottom as my bottom number. And what the students are going to do next is take a look and see if we can trade anything for anything else when we add them together. So we take the units part, that's over here. So we take the units and we add 2 units and 1 unit, and we just get 3 units. You can't trade that for a rod. It's not enough. A rod is 10 units. But then look at the middle section with all those rods. Can you trade some of those rods for a flat? And then how many rods would you have left over after you did the trade? Typically with kids, you want to do something fun, like have one student in charge of the top number, one student in charge of the bottom number, and have one student in charge of the trading. And maybe even have a treasurer who says, yes, your trade is correct. So I'm going to pause. I would like you to pause the video for a second and you think about what you could trade here. You might keep this on your screen and just imagine what you would trade for what and what would be left over. Okay, do you have an idea of what to do? Sure you do. Of course you do, because you're not just learning this as a kid, right? But I think actually adding and subtracting in base 10 blocks is kind of hard for us grown-ups because we're used to all the borrowing and carrying stuff. So if you have to work it out on the side on a piece of paper, that's fine. So here we go. So we've taken the 10 rods and traded it for 1 new flat, which I colored in pink. And I cross out those rods because I traded them, and I only have 1 rod left. So what's this number that I now have when I add them together? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 flats. So you count the new flat too, right? So altogether I have 6 flats, and I have 1 rod and 4 units. That's 600 and, I have 3 units, 613. So that's very similar to the following addition. So this is the same as doing 342 plus 271. 2 and 1 is 3. 4 and 7 is 11. You put down 1, you carry the 1. That whole put down 1, carry the 1. Who understands that when you first learn it? So that's why we're using the base 10 blocks. And it's so much easier for kids if you don't do that part that you know how to do right away, and let them play with the blocks and trade first so that they really know what's going on. Now, after they've done a bunch of trading with the blocks, you're going to move into partial sums addition, where what you do is you break down the 342 and the 271. So you don't do this right away. You do a breakdown. Let me show you the breakdown. This is partial sums addition. You, instead of 342, actually, let me just show you. You don't do the 342 with the carry of the 1 right now, right? Okay, it's crossed it out. So what you do instead is you do 300 plus 40 plus 2. 200 plus 70 plus 1. That's like the base 10 blocks. You add the 2 and the 1, that's 3. You add the 40 and the 70, and that's 110. Don't carry. You add the 300 and the 200, and that's 500. And now you add them all up together, and you get 613. Just like in your usual method, right? But slower so that the students can really understand it. Hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next one.